The air shook. Not from thunder, not from explosions, but from the scream of something ancient and massive. Flying above the battlefield. Rain hit the metal helmet of Sergeant Dax Rivers. He didn't move. He stood tall in the mud, shoulders square, rifle low. Around him, soldiers were crawling into bunkers, yelling, ducking, but Dax, he just watched. Above, the sky split open. From the clouds came a beast, no, a monster, larger than any ship, with ice-cracked skin, wings sharp like broken glass, and glowing blue eyes that saw through souls. It wasn't alone. Behind it flew a legion of pale silver-skinned aliens riding war creatures shaped like armored wolves. This was not a scouting party. This was an invasion. They had come without warning. No radio signals, no diplomatic calls. One moment the human outpost on planet Varela was quiet. Next moment, death walked the sky, but still, Dax did not move. Voice cracked through the comms. "Sergeant Dax, get down. That thing is scanning you." The beast circled once. Its wings threw down a frozen wind that turned the ground around Dax into ice. Yet the human man did not flinch. He stared straight at it, like he was waiting. And then it landed. The entire battlefield shook. The beast's claws dug into the dirt, its breath freezing the air. Upon its back sat a rider, tall, glowing, alien. A woman. Her white hair floated like smoke. Her armor shimmered with power. She looked down at Dax and tilted her head. "You're brave. Or very stupid, human," she said, her voice deep but elegant. Dax didn't answer. Behind him, every human soldier had frozen. Not from fear, but because this wasn't war anymore. This was something else. A meeting. A moment. The alien woman slid off the beast, her feet touching the ground with the grace of a queen. The creature growled, but she held up one hand and it went still. "Do you not fear me?" she asked. Dax blinked. Slowly. "Should I?" She laughed. It echoed across the hills. "Even my monster knows fear," she said. She placed a hand gently on the beast's snout. "But you didn't flinch. Not once." Dax lowered his rifle, not dropped it. Just lowered it. "Fear is for moments that matter," he said calmly. Her smile faded. "Are you saying this doesn't matter?" "I'm saying," Dax said, stepping forward, "I've seen war. I've seen monsters. I've seen my own commanders lie while kids burned. In their own homes. I've seen worse than you." A pause. The wind howled through the broken trees. The alien warriors watched from above, their glowing mounts restless. The humans watched from behind the trenches, eyes wide. "You don't know who I am, do you?" she asked. "No." She looked amused. "They call me Velara, Queen of the Ice Thorns. Breaker of 10 planets. My beast's name is Threem. He eats starships for breakfast." Dax looked at Threem, then back at her. "Looks hungry." The monster growled again, but Velara raised one brow. "You speak boldly for a man who stands alone. I'm not alone." And just then, as if on cue, something moved behind the clouds. The clouds parted. A ripple. A hum. A faint glow appeared in the sky behind the alien army. Velara turned slowly. There, rising above the horizon, was a human ship. No, the ship. The Arclight, Earth's last dreadnought. Silent, dark, massive. Its cannons still cold, but it was there. "You brought a warship here?" Velara whispered, her tone shifting. "No," Dax said. "It followed me." The alien queen narrowed her eyes. "You planned this?" "No," he said again, "but we don't flinch. We don't kneel. You'll learn that soon." For the first time, Velara stepped back. Her fingers twitched near her weapon. Threem growled, but not at Dax, at the Azal IGHT. And the humans. They stood now. Silent, soaked in rain, guns ready. Not afraid, because something had shifted. This was not just invasion. This was the beginning of something bigger. Something unexpected. Velara stood silently, her long silver hair moving with the cold wind, her glowing blue eyes fixed on the human warship above. Threem, the ancient beast at her side, took one heavy step back, and for the first time in centuries, his nostrils flared not from anger, but caution. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. The ice thorns were never challenged. Planets surrendered at the sight of Velara. Kingdoms bent before the roar of Threem. But now, a man stood in the mud, unshaken. And behind him, a warship watched like a silent guardian, its cannons humming with power. Velara turned to Threem. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You feel it too, don't you?" The beast growled low, eyes flicking toward the arclight. Dax didn't move. He stood like a statue, calm, focused. Behind him, the human soldiers were no longer hiding. Some were climbing the trenches. Some had already moved into new positions. Not chaotic, but quiet, organized. This wasn't fear. This was something else. Preparedness. Velara stepped forward. Her boots crunched the frost-covered ground as she closed the distance between her and Dax. Her warriors remained mounted, unsure, waiting for her signal. Their war beasts hissed in the sky, but none moved lower. "What is this?" she asked softly, her voice no longer filled with pride. "You were supposed to run." Dax met her eyes. "That's what your kind always thinks." She studied his face. No signs of panic. No shaking hands. Just eyes that had seen too much, and yet still burned with purpose. "What is your name, human?" "Sergeant Dax Rivers." "No title?" she asked. "No crown? No power?" "I lead when I have to. I follow when I trust. And I stand when I must." For a moment, silence fell between them. Velara tilted her head slightly. "Then you are dangerous." He raised a brow. "Because I'm not scared?" "No," she said slowly, almost thoughtfully. "Because you don't care about death." Suddenly, Threem growled louder. The ground shook slightly. But this time, Dax stepped toward the beast, calmly, slowly, until he stood just feet away from the monster's open jaws. Velara watched with curiosity. "He could crush you with one breath." "He could try," Dax replied. "But if he's smart, he won't." Threem bared his teeth. Frost poured from his mouth like smoke. But he didn't attack. Velara's heart skipped once. Threem was hesitating. And that had never happened before. Far above, the arclight turned slightly, positioning itself in orbit. Not firing. Not threatening. Just watching. Its massive shadow fell across the valley like a silent promise. The kind that says, "Try it, and you'll regret it." Dax finally spoke again. "You've invaded 10 planets, maybe more. You scare everyone, but maybe today you met the wrong species." She narrowed her eyes. "You speak like you're not just one man." "I'm not," Dax replied. "I carry the weight of every world you broke. And now they all stand behind me." Velara looked away for a moment, unsure. Her fingers tapped her blade hilt, not out of anger, but thought. Even the wind seemed unsure now, as if the air itself held its breath. Then softly she asked, "Why didn't you flinch?" Dax's voice was low, but steady. "Because flinching is for cowards. And you may have brought monsters, but you forgot one thing." She looked up. "What?" He stepped aside, revealing something behind him, not a weapon, not a machine, but a small human child standing in the cold with wide eyes and a dirty face, holding a broken flag. Dax pointed. "That's who I protect, not empires, not medals, just people. And for them, I'll stare death in the face every time." Velara looked at the child. The girl did not cry. She stared at the Queen of Ice Thorns and smiled. Threem made a strange noise, a kind of huff, as if confused. He stepped back again, his claws leaving deep prints in the snow. Velara's heart felt heavy suddenly, her fingers trembling slightly. No fear, not from the man, not from the child, Even the beast was unsure now. What kind of species ... refuses to kneel? And deep within her mind, for the first time since she had become queen, Velara felt something cold and unfamiliar crawl up her spine. It wasn't the wind. It was doubt. Velara stood still, but her mind was racing. Her people had trained her never to hesitate, never to second guess. Yet here she was, staring at a muddy soldier and a child, and feeling something she had not felt in 100 battles. Unease. The wind tugged at her silver cloak as she stepped backward. Threem, the beast, lowered his giant head near the girl. His glowing blue eyes stared into hers, trying to see what the queen could not understand. The child didn't flinch, didn't blink. She simply smiled again, not with defiance, but something worse. Trust. And Velara felt it like a whisper in her bones. This human, this species, they were dangerous not because they had bigger guns or larger ships. They were dangerous because they believed. Even their weakest, the smallest, carried a flame that refused to be crushed. Threem snorted and backed away. Dax walked calmly to the girl, knelt beside her, and wiped the dirt from her cheek. "Go back to the tent, Mia," he said softly. "It's not your fight." Mia nodded and ran. No tears, no fear. Velara watched her go, and suddenly her mind was filled with an old memory, one she had buried deep, a planet. Long ago, her first conquest. She had stood victorious over a city of defenders. Among the rubble, a child had looked up at her, not crying, not begging, just watching, the same eyes, the same silence. She had ordered the beast to look away that day. She had forgotten the child. Until now. "Why are you really here, Velara?" Dax asked suddenly, breaking the silence. She blinked. "What do you mean? You didn't come here just to conquer. You could have destroyed this outpost from orbit. You landed instead. You brought your monster down. You wanted to be seen." The queen clenched her jaw. He was reading her too well. "You needed us to look into your eyes," he continued, "to remember that you still exist, that you still matter. You don't want surrender. You want recognition." Velara's breath caught in her throat. He was right. After 10 worlds bowed, her name was feared. But feared names fade. People forget fear. What they remember is resistance. And somehow, she had come to this cold rock looking for something. Not glory, not resources. A challenge. And now she had it, but not from a general or a fleet. From a man in the mud, a child with a smile. A warship that didn't fire but watched. It was all wrong. It was all right. She stepped toward Dax, slower this time, less like a queen, more like a woman. "You speak like someone who has lost much," she said. "I've lost too many good people to silence now." Her voice softened. "You remind me of someone." He looked curious. "Someone you respected?" She shook her head gently. "Someone I betrayed." Behind them, the sky shimmered as her warriors circled low. One of them descended. His beast landed hard beside her, claws cracking the frost. He removed his helmet. "A young warrior, loyal and strong. Queen Velara," he said. "Shall we destroy the humans?" She looked at him, then at Dax, then at Threem, who still stood unnaturally still. "No," she whispered. "Not today." The warrior looked shocked. "But my queen," I said, "not today." Then she turned back. To Dax, "You've changed something." He didn't smile. "We didn't come to change you. Just survive. That's what makes you powerful." She mounted Threem again. The beast's wings opened wide. Snow blasted around them, but before she flew away, she called down one final sentence. "This is not the end, Dax Rivers. You've been marked." Then they rose into the clouds, leaving behind silence. The humans stood in the quiet, not victorious, but alive. And Dax, watching the sky close again, whispered to no one, "Then come back, Queen, because now we're ready." 3 days passed. The battlefield was still cold, quiet, scarred. The queen had vanished into the skies with her army, but something strange had stayed behind uncertainty. Not just among the aliens, but among the humans too. Sergeant Dax Rivers sat in the command tent. The heat inside crackled from an old thermal coil, barely working. His fingers were blackened from holding fuel rods all night. But he didn't mind. He had stayed awake for days before. He had stayed alive longer than many expected. Across from him sat Commander Ree, a quiet woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She stared at the holomap, watching strange readings appear near the ridge. "They're still there," she said. "Valara?" "No, scouts, cloaked, watching us." Dax leaned forward. "Good, let them watch." Ree raised an eyebrow. Most men would be nervous, and not most men. She smiled, but it faded quickly. "You think she'd come back?" He nodded once. "I think she left to test us, and now she's waiting to see what we do next." Outside the tent, Mia, the same girl who had smiled at the monster, was drawing something in the snow with a metal stick, a flag. Not of Earth, not of the army, but of something new. Something that wasn't just human. Hope. Just then, the radio cracked alive. "Will quote, sir. You'd better come outside." Dax stood up and walked out into the open air. Snow still drifted slowly, but there was no wind, no sound of war. Just silence, and then a fire. At the far end of the valley, someone had lit a massive blaze. It wasn't random. It burned in a perfect shape, a message. A symbol, Valara's crest, but next to it, another flame flickered. A second shape. It wasn't alien. It wasn't military. It was a hand. A human handprint, made of flame, a reply. Dax squinted at the firelight. She's sending a message. Ree crossed her arms. Or a threat. No, Dax said softly. She could have sent missiles. Then what is it? She's confused. Ree looked puzzled. The Queen of the Ice Thorns, confused? She saw something in us she wasn't ready for. Then, without another word, Dax turned to Mia. "Come here." The little girl jogged up, cheeks red from the cold. "Yes?" He knelt beside her. "Tell me again what you saw when the beast looked at you." Mia thought for a second. "It was sad." "Sad?" She nodded, not angry. Not scary, just sad, like it didn't want to be here. Dax stood again, more certain now. "She's not just testing our strength." "Then what?" Ree asked. "Our hearts," Ree scoffed. "What? We're in a love story now?" But Dax didn't answer. He was already walking toward the fires. That night, the humans didn't sleep. They gathered near the edge of the valley, no weapons, no defense systems. Just torches and silence, and then shadows moved in the mist. Valara didn't descend with roars or commands this time. She walked through the snow, alone, unarmed. Wrapped in a cloak of silver fur, Dax didn't move. She came within 10 feet of him and stopped. Her breath formed clouds in the cold. "You understood the fire," she said. Double quotes, "Yes." "Do you know what the hand means?" He nodded. "It means we're reaching out, even now." She looked behind her. No soldiers, no beast. Just her, you. "Humans confuse me." "Good." Her lips curved slightly. "My people believe strength is in domination. You believe it's in resistance." "That's not what I believe," Dax said. "Strength is in knowing when not to strike." The wind picked up, swirling snow between them. Valara stepped closer. "I did not come to destroy your world." "I know. I came to test mine." Dax's face didn't change. "And what have you learned?" She looked at him for a long moment. "That maybe the monsters we raise are not the ones we fear most." And with that, she reached into her cloak and pulled out something unexpected. A seed. Glowing. Ancient. She placed it in his hand. "This is a peace seed. Only grows on war soil." Dax stared at it, confused. "Why give this to me?" She whispered one word. "Because you didn't flinch." Then she turned and disappeared into the frost dot, and for the first time in years, Sergeant Dax Rivers felt something rise in his chest. Not pride, anger, but belief. Something had begun. Something bigger than war. The frost never melted on Varela. Even when the sun rose weakly in the sky, the ground stayed cold. But something had changed in the air. It wasn't just the fire that still glowed at the edge of the valley. It was the silence. A silence that now carried weight. Dax stood alone near the seed Valara had given him. He had planted it beside the human flag. No one spoke when he did it. Even the loudest soldiers just watched. Something about the Queen's gift had shaken them all. But the real surprise came at dawn. It was Corporal Juno who screamed first, then others followed, because something massive was walking into the human camp, slowly, carefully. It was Thrym. The beast, Valara's ancient monster. Alone. His icy armor shimmered in the sunlight. His massive paws stepped through the snow without sound. Soldiers grabbed weapons but didn't fire, not because they weren't afraid, but because Dax raised his hand. Hold your fire. Juno whispered, Sir, that thing could destroy this whole camp. I don't think it's here to fight. Dax stepped forward as the beast stopped in the center of the outpost. It looked around, not with anger, but curiosity. Then its glowing eyes locked onto the small girl Mia. She stood again, completely still. Thrym lowered his massive head. Dax watched closely. Then, incredibly, Mia walked toward him. Everyone held their breath. She reached out and touched his snout, and the monster closed its eyes. The entire valley went quiet, not out of fear, out of peace. Dax stepped closer. He noticed something odd. The creature's neck was no longer bearing the royal armor. Valara had removed it. There was no saddle, no chains. Just skin, scars. Age. Thrym was free, but he hadn't left. Why are you here? Dax whispered. The beast opened one glowing eye and looked at him directly, and for a moment, just a breath, Dax understood. This wasn't a weapon. This was a prisoner, a living relic trained for war, who had now chosen something else. Peace. He stayed behind, Dax said out loud, now looking around. Valara released him, rejoined him, eyes wide. But why would she do that? Dax answered softly, because she saw in him what she sees in herself, a warrior forced to be a monster. Mia sat next to the beast's paw. Thrym didn't move. All around, humans stood down. No orders were given. No one told them what to do, but they all understood something had happened that no training had prepared them for. Dax knelt next to the creature. The old scars on Thrym's body told a story, centuries of battle, pain, captivity. But now there was calm. You're not here to fight, Dax said. You're here to rest. The beast blinked slowly, then lowered its massive body onto the snow. The ground rumbled gently. And then, without any warning, the planted seed behind Dax glowed. Every eye turned toward it. A single green sprout had emerged. We whispered, That's impossible. Nothing grows on Varela. But the proof was there. The peace seed was alive. Dax stood, still staring at it. This planet was built on war, but maybe something new is growing. That night, the humans lit no fires, no patrols, no drills. Only soft songs hummed in the dark and children sleeping without fear. And outside the camp, Thrym stayed curled beside the seed, guarding it, not as a beast, but as something reborn. A full cycle had passed. The peace seed had grown taller, its leaves glowing gently at night, as if it carried the memories of everything that had happened. No one could explain how it survived the frost. Scientists tried. Soldiers gave their theories, but in the end, everyone knew the truth. It had grown because something changed. Thrym never left the base. He no longer roared or flew or guarded anyone. He simply stayed, beside the plant, beside the humans, watching, breathing, becoming something the galaxy thought was impossible. Safe. But the world outside hadn't forgotten. Velara's generals grew restless. They whispered about her silence, about the beast that never returned. Some called it betrayal. Others called it madness. One called it what it truly was, surrender. So they came, not with honor, but with fire. From the sky fell ships, hundreds of them, black and sharp like falling knives. The queen had not sent them, her generals had. To prove that strength still ruled. To remind the galaxy that emotion was weakness. Inside the base, alarms screamed. Commander Ree grabbed her rifle. "We can't fight this, Dax. That's a full invasion." Dax stood in the center of the camp, unmoving. "We won't fight," he said calmly. Ree stared at him. "Then we'll die." "No," Dax said. "We'll show them something else." The ship circled above. Then they stopped. Not firing. Not yet. They were watching. Waiting. And then Dax walked out into the open. No armor. No helmet. No gun. Just him. Mia followed, holding his hand. Soldiers behind him stepped out too. One by one. No shields. No rockets. No defenses. They stood in the snow, beside the glowing peace plant. Beside Threem. The beast rose now, massive, ancient, wings tight to his body. He looked to the sky, unafraid. And then they came. The generals themselves descended, standing at the edge of the camp in black metal armor. Faces hidden, eyes sharp with contempt. "You do not kneel," one of them said coldly. "No," Dax replied. "You do not raise weapons." "No." "Then explain," another hissed, "why the queen's beast sleeps beside your children." Dax stepped closer. "Because he's not your beast anymore." They laughed. "So the queen is weak. Now, a fool?" But a new voice rose behind them, soft, powerful, familiar. "No," said Velara. She appeared from the mist, wrapped not in armor, but in a white robe stitched with the symbols of her ancestors. "She is not weak. She is finally free." Her generals turned in shock. "You were a conqueror." "I was a prisoner of my own legend," Velara replied. "But the humans showed me something I never learned in war." She walked past her generals, past Dax, and stopped beside the peace plant. Her fingers touched one glowing leaf. "They showed me that true strength is knowing when not to destroy what you fear." Then, without warning, she knelt. Before the plant. Before Thrym. Before the people. Her generals froze. And so did the galaxy. One by one. The soldiers behind her lowered their weapons. Some knelt, some simply stood, unsure, watching. And then Threem roared. But it wasn't the roar of war. It was the sound of something ancient. Breaking. Chains. Memories. Pain. The sound echoed far across the planet and into the stars. Velara looked up at Dax. "You didn't flinch." Dax nodded. "Neither did you." The two of them stood together now, not as enemies, but as something else. All around them, the humans and the aliens began to talk, no longer in fear, but in curiosity. In possibility. That night, Dax returned to his tent. Mia was asleep near the glowing seed. Outside, Threem snored gently like a mountain. Re-entered quietly. "You think this will last?" Dax looked out at the sky. "I think today the galaxy saw something new. A story it didn't expect." She nodded. "And tomorrow?" He smiled. "We write the rest."